I should have thrown my phone into the ocean months ago. Instead, I was standing in my cramped kitchen at 11 p.m., mascara streaked down my cheeks, staring at 3 words I'd just typed in a blind rage. I hate you. My thumb hovered over the send button. My ex-boyfriend, former fiancé, had just posted photos on social media with the woman he swore was just a coworker. They were in Santorini. Santorini, the place we were supposed to honeymoon. I hit send. The message whooshed away into the digital void, and I felt a savage satisfaction bloom in my chest. Finally, I'd said what I should have said 6 months ago when I found the hotel receipts, when I found the lies, when I found out that Daniel Reeves was nothing but a... My phone buzzed. I frowned. That was fast. Daniel never responded quickly to anything, especially not my anger. The message preview made my stomach drop. Unknown number. Wrong number, sweetheart. But I'm intrigued. Ice water replaced the blood. In my veins. No. I yanked my phone closer, hands trembling as I opened my messages. My breath caught. There it was, my furious text sitting in a thread I didn't recognize. Not Daniel's contact, not his number. I'd sent, "I hate you," to a complete stranger. Me, "I'm so sorry. That wasn't meant for you." The 3 dots appeared immediately. Whoever this was, they were still awake, still watching. Unknown number, shame. I was hoping I'd done something memorable. My face burned. I should have just apologized again and blocked the number. Should have laughed it off as the universe's cruel joke and poured myself another glass of wine. But something about the message, smooth, confident, almost amused, made my pulse skip. Me, seriously, I'm sorry. Wrong contact. Unknown number, forgiven. But now I'm curious who earned that much venom. I bit my lip. This was insane. I was texting a stranger at 11 p.m. On a Tuesday, my heart still bleeding from Daniel's betrayal. My judgment, clearly compromised by Chardonnay and heartbreak. Me, ex-fiancé. He's in Santorini with his mistress. Why did I just tell him that? Unknown number. His loss. What's your address? I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the counter. Screen up, his message glowing like a threat. My heart hammered against my ribs. What kind of person asks for someone's address after 3 text messages? I grabbed the phone with shaking hands. Me, excuse me? Unknown number. Your address. I'll send flowers. Or wine. You sound like you need both. This was either the sweetest gesture from a stranger or the beginning of a true crime podcast episode about my disappearance. Me, I don't give my address to people I don't know. Unknown number. Smart girl. 2 words. That's all it took for heat to coil low in my stomach. Smart girl. Spoken like a teacher praising a student. Like a man who was used to being obeyed. Unknown number. But I don't like the idea of you crying over someone who doesn't deserve. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Who was this person? Me. You don't even know me. Unknown number. Not yet. My mouth went dry. Before I could respond, before I could think, another message arrived. Unknown number. Ava Monroe. 47 Crescent Street, apartment 3B. The wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered against the tile floor. He knew my name. He knew where I lived. Panic clawed up my throat as I stumbled backward, my hip slamming into the counter. How did he? I hadn't told him anything. I'd been careful. My doorbell rang. The sound sliced through the silence like a gunshot. I froze, every muscle in my body locking into place. It was almost midnight. No one came to my apartment at midnight. No one except... The doorbell rang again, longer this time, insistent. I crept toward the door, my bare feet silent on the hardwood. My phone was still in my hand, the screen dark now, useless. I should call the police. I should scream. I should do anything, except what I was doing, moving closer to the door like a moth to a flame. I looked through the peephole, and my world tilted. The man standing in my hallway wasn't what I expected. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble and shadows. Sharp jawline, straight nose, lips that curved into something too knowing to be called a smile. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Cold, calculating. The kind of eyes that had seen things I couldn't imagine. The kind of eyes that missed nothing. He was wearing a black suit, tailored perfectly to his broad shoulders, the top button of his shirt undone. Expensive. Dangerous. Wrong in every possible way, and he was holding a bouquet of white roses. He looked directly at the peephole, directly at me. "Open the door, Ava." His voice was low, smooth, with an edge of command that made my knees weak. Not a request, an order. "I know you're scared," he continued, his tone softening just slightly. "But I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because someone who cries over a man like that deserves to know what real power looks like." Real power? The words hung in the air like a threat and a promise. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run, to call for help, to do anything except unlock that door. But my hand was already reaching for the deadbolt, because somewhere beneath the terror, beneath the shock, was something else. Something darker. Something that whispered, "What if?" The lock clicked open. I pulled the door back slowly, my heart in my throat. He stood there, roses in one hand, the other tucked casually into his pocket. Up close, he was even more devastating, even more dangerous. "Hello, Ava," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. "I'm Dante Moretti." The name hit me like a physical blow. Dante Moretti. I knew that name. Everyone in this city knew that name. He wasn't just dangerous. He was the most dangerous man in the entire state. And I'd just let him into my apartment. I couldn't breathe. Dante Moretti stood in my doorway like he owned it. Like he owned the entire building. Maybe he did. From what I knew, what everyone whispered about in coffee shops and office break rooms, Dante Moretti owned half the city. The half that didn't show up on tax records. "You're..." My voice came out strangled. "You're Dante Moretti." Guilty. He extended the roses toward me, his expression unreadable. "Though I prefer to think of myself as the man who just saved you from a night of bad wine and worse decisions. I didn't take the flowers. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. How did you find me?" The question came out sharper than I intended, fear sharpening my tongue. "How do you know my name? My address?" "I know everything about this city, Ava." He said my name like he'd been saying it for years, like it belonged in his mouth. "Including when someone accidentally texts me instead of their ex." "That doesn't explain." "You used your real number. Your phone is registered under your name. Your name is tied to your lease." He tilted his head, studying me with those unsettling dark eyes. It took 3 minutes. 3 minutes. He'd found every detail of my life in 3 minutes. That's... I swallowed hard. That's terrifying. That's power. He stepped forward, and I instinctively stepped back. His jaw tightened slightly, the first crack in his controlled exterior. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're a criminal." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Something flickered across his face. Not anger. Something colder. "I'm a businessman. You run the Moretti family." My back hit the wall. "You're the head of the... Choose your next words carefully." His voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Accusations are dangerous things, Ava. Especially when you don't know who's listening." The threat hung between us, sharp as a blade. But then his expression shifted, softened. He held up the roses again, and this time, there was something almost gentle in the gesture. "I didn't come here to scare you," he said quietly. "I came here because a woman who types 'I hate you' with that much feeling deserves better than crying alone at midnight." I stared at him, my mind racing. This didn't make sense. Men like Dante Moretti didn't show up at random women's apartments with flowers. They didn't care about broken hearts or wrong numbers. "Why?" I whispered. "Why what? Why do you care?" He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that made my skin prickle. When he finally spoke, his voice was rougher, rower, "Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by someone you trusted." The confession hung in the air between us, unexpected and devastating. Before I could respond, he set the roses down on the small table by my door. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, black, expensive cardstock with silver lettering. "If you ever need anything," he said, pressing it into my hand. His fingers were warm, his touch brief but electric. "And I mean anything, call me." I looked down at the card. Just his name. A phone number. No company. No title. "I don't understand," I breathed. "You don't have to." He stepped back, creating distance between us. But his eyes never left mine. "But you will." That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator at the end of the hall, his movements smooth and controlled. Predatory. I should have closed the door. Should have locked it and called the police and pretended this never happened. Instead, I called after him. Why did you really come here? He stopped, didn't turn around. Because, he said, his voice carrying down the empty hallway. Something about that text about you made me feel something I haven't felt in a very long time. What's that? He looked back over his shoulder, and the expression on his face stole the air from my lungs. Curious. Then he disappeared into the elevator, and I was alone again. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the white roses on my table and the black business card in my hand. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too exposed. I locked the door, all 3 locks. Then I grabbed my phone and did what any rational person would do. I Googled him. Dante Moretti, 34, alleged head of the Moretti crime family. The search results were endless. Photos of him at charity galas in $1,000 suits. Newspaper articles about federal investigations that never went anywhere. Whispers of violence, power, and control. And beneath it all, a single truth that everyone seemed to know, but no one could prove. Dante Moretti was untouchable. I scrolled through the images, him at restaurant openings, at city council meetings, shaking hands with politicians and police commissioners, always composed, always in control, always alone. I clicked on an article from 2 years ago. Moretti family tragedy. Dante Moretti's fiancée killed in car accident. My heart stopped. The article was brief. Sara Castellano, 29, killed in a single car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway. No other vehicles involved. No witnesses. But the comments section told a different story. Everyone knows it wasn't an accident. She knew too much. That's what happens when you cross the Morettis. I slammed my laptop shut, my stomach churning. What had I done? What had I invited into my life? My phone buzzed. I grabbed it with trembling hands. Dante Moretti. Sleep well, Ava. Tomorrow everything changes. I stared at the message, my pulse thundering in my ears. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and the logic and the screaming voice telling me to run, I felt a thrill, because Dante Moretti had just walked into my life, and I had a terrible feeling he wasn't planning to leave. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Dante Moretti standing in my doorway, roses in hand, danger written into every line of his perfect face. I saw his eyes dark and knowing and hungry for something I couldn't name. By the time dawn broke over the city, I'd convinced myself it was a fever dream, a hallucination brought on by cheap wine and heartbreak. Then I saw the roses. They sat on my kitchen counter in a crystal vase I didn't own, white petals pristine and perfect. Beside them, his business card gleamed like a dark promise. Tomorrow, everything changes. I grabbed my phone. No new messages. Part of me felt relieved. The other part, the part I refused to acknowledge, felt disappointed. I needed coffee. I needed normal. I needed to pretend that the most dangerous man in the city hadn't shown up at my apartment at midnight. I showered, dressed in my standard work uniform, black slacks, cream blouse, hair pulled into a professional bun, and headed out the door. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I knew something was wrong. A man stood by the elevator. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit and an earpiece. He looked like Secret Service. He looked like Miss Monroe. His voice was professional, clipped. Mr. Moretti sent me to escort you. My blood turned to ice. Escort me where? To your office. He thought you might appreciate the security. I don't need... It wasn't a request, Miss Monroe. The way he said it, calm, absolute, final, made it clear that arguing would be pointless. I'd been claimed. The ride to my office was silent. The man he'd introduced himself as Marco drove a black SUV with tinted windows that probably cost more than my annual salary. He didn't speak, didn't look at me, just drove with the kind of hyper-awareness that screamed military training. When we pulled up to the modest building that housed the nonprofit where I worked as a grant writer, Marco got out first. He scanned the street like he was expecting sniper fire, then opened my door. Mr. Moretti will contact you soon, he said. Then he was gone. I stood on the sidewalk, my heart racing, as my coworkers filed past me into the building. Nobody noticed. Nobody saw that my entire world had just been turned upside down. I made it to my desk on autopilot, turned on my computer, opened my email, and that's when I saw it. From D. Moretti, subject, dinner. My hand hovered over the mouse, trembling. I clicked. Ava, Mezzogiorno, 8 p.m. A car will pick you up at 7:45. Don't be late. D. That was it. No pleasantries, no explanation. Just an order delivered like he had every right to command my evening. I should have been furious. Instead, my stomach fluttered. Ava? I jumped, slamming my laptop shut. My colleague Jennifer stood in my cubicle entrance, coffee in hand, her eyebrows raised. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. I lied. Just tired. Daniel again? The mention of my ex sent a sharp pang through my chest, but it felt distant now. Muted, like someone else's pain. Yeah, I said softly. Daniel. Jennifer squeezed my shoulder. He's an idiot. You're better off. If only she knew that I'd accidentally traded one disaster for something infinitely more dangerous. The day crawled by in agonizing slow motion. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leaped. But Dante didn't text, didn't call, just left me drowning in the weight of his expectation. Dinner, 8 p.m., don't be late. By 7:30, I was standing in front of my closet, torn between defiance and something darker. I could ignore the summons. I could block his number, file a police report, tell Marco to get lost when he showed up. But I wouldn't. Because beneath the fear, beneath the rational voice screaming at me to run, I wanted to know. I wanted to know why Dante Moretti had chosen me. What he wanted. Who he really was beneath the rumors and the violence and the power. I pulled out a dress I'd bought on impulse months ago, black, simple, elegant. It hugged my curves without being provocative. Professional enough to feel like armor. Feminine enough to remind him I wasn't afraid. Even though I was. At exactly 7:45, my doorbell rang. Marco stood in the hallway. Same suit, same unreadable expression. Miss Monroe, he said with a slight nod. Mr. Moretti is waiting. The restaurant was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Mezzogiorno wasn't listed on any map, wasn't advertised on social media. It existed in the kind of exclusive space where power brokers and politicians and criminals ate $50 pasta and made deals that shaped the city. Marco led me through a private entrance, past a maitre d' who recognized me without me saying a word, and into a dining room that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across white tablecloths and polished silverware. And at a corner table, alone, sat Dante. He rose when he saw me. Tonight, he wore a navy suit that fit him like sin. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, but it was his eyes that pinned me in place. Intense, possessive, like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. Ava. My name was a caress on his lips. You came. Did I have a choice? I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. He smiled a slow, dangerous curve of his mouth. No. He pulled out my chair, the gesture old-fashioned and commanding all at once. I sat, my pulse racing, as he settled across from me. Why am I here? I asked. Dante leaned back, studying me with those unnerving eyes. Because I want to know you. You already know everything about me. You found me in 3 minutes, remember? I know facts. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. I want to know the truth. What truth? His gaze held mine, and the intensity in it made my breath catch. Why, he said slowly, a woman who types "I hate you" with that much passion is wasting her fire on a man who never deserved it. I opened my mouth to respond, and then every light in the restaurant went out. Darkness swallowed the restaurant whole. For 3 seconds, there was only silence, thick, suffocating silence, and then chaos erupted. Chairs scraping, voices rising in confusion, the muted crash of silverware hitting the floor. But Dante didn't move. He sat perfectly still across from me, a shadow in the darkness. And when he spoke, his voice was lethally calm. Stay in your seat, Ava. What's happening? Before he could answer, a hand clamped onto my shoulder from behind, firm, unyielding. I gasped, but Marco's voice cut through my panic. Sir, we need to move. Now, not yet. Dante's tone was absolute. Sir, I said not yet. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the restaurant in eerie red. In that crimson glow, I finally saw Dante's face, and the cold, calculated fury etched into every line. This wasn't a power outage. This was a message. Around us, other diners were being ushered toward exits by men in dark suits, who'd appeared like ghosts. Security. Dante's men. They moved with military precision, voices low and urgent. But Dante remained seated, his eyes locked on the windows. Dante, I whispered, fear clawing up my throat. What's going on? Someone's testing me. His jaw tightened. Seeing if I'm distracted. Distracted by what? He finally looked at me, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. By you. Before I could process that, Marco appeared at Dante's elbow. The perimeter is secure, but we found this. He handed Dante something small, a folded piece of paper. Dante opened it, his expression turning to stone. Then he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the kind of smile that promised violence. Take her to the car, Dante said, rising from his seat. Back entrance. Now. Wait. I started, but Dante was already moving, his long strides carrying him toward a door I hadn't noticed. Marco's hand was on my arm, firm but not rough, pulling me in the opposite direction. Miss Monroe, please. We need to go. I didn't have a choice. Marco guided me through the kitchen, all stainless steel and controlled chaos, as staff scrambled to manage the situation, and out into a narrow alley. The same black SUV idled there, rear door open, engine running. Get in, Marco ordered. Not until someone tells me what the hell is happening. Miss Monroe, I'm not moving until... Gunfire cracked through the night. 3 sharp reports from somewhere close. Too close. Marco shoved me into the SUV without ceremony, slamming the door behind me. The locks engaged automatically. Bulletproof glass, reinforced doors, a cage. Through the tinted windows, I watched Marco speak urgently into his wrist mic. His hand hovered near his jacket where I had no doubt he kept a weapon. Then Dante emerged from the restaurant's back entrance. He wasn't running. Wasn't even hurrying. He walked with the same controlled grace he'd had in my apartment, in the restaurant, like the gunfire was nothing more than background noise. Blood-stained, his knuckles. I pressed my hand against the window, my heart in my throat. Dante's eyes found mine through the glass, and for just a moment, something flickered across his face. Concern. Real, human concern. Then it was gone, replaced by cold command as he climbed into the driver's seat. Marco, handle it, he said, and the SUV surged forward before I could protest. We drove in silence through the city streets, the bright lights and bustling crowds a jarring contrast to the violence we'd just escaped. I watched Dante's profile, the hard line of his jaw, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled precision. You're bleeding, I finally said. It's not my blood. That should have terrified me, should have sent me scrambling for the door locks, screaming for help. Instead I asked, whose blood is it? Dante glanced at me, something like approval in his eyes. Someone who won't make the same mistake twice. We pulled into an underground garage, private, secured, nothing like my apartment's sad parking lot. Dante killed the engine but didn't move, just sat there, staring straight ahead, his hands still on the wheel. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For tonight, for putting you in danger. I barked out a bitter laugh. You didn't put me in danger. You are the danger. He turned to face me fully, and in the dim light of the garage, he looked almost vulnerable, almost human. I didn't expect this, he admitted. Didn't expect you to become a target so quickly. A target for what? For my enemies. The Rossi family has been looking for a weakness, and apparently, his jaw clenched. Apparently they've decided you're it. The words hung between us, heavy and terrifying. Because of one dinner? I demanded. Because I accidentally texted you? Because I showed up at your door? Because I sent Marco? Because I brought you to Mezzogiorno? He leaned closer, his voice rough. Because everyone in this city knows that Dante Moretti doesn't do anything without reason, and the moment I showed interest in you, you became leverage. My hands were shaking. I didn't ask for this. I know. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was gentle, reverent. I know, Ava, and I'm going to fix it. How? His smile was dark, dangerous. By making it very clear what happens to anyone who touches what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet. He pulled back, his expression shifting to something harder. But you're in my world now, whether you like it or not. He got out of the car, came around to my side, and opened the door. Where are we? I asked, climbing out on unsteady legs. Dante gestured toward a private elevator. Somewhere safe, somewhere they can't touch you. The elevator required a key card, a retinal scan, and a 6-digit code that Dante entered without hesitation. The doors opened to reveal a penthouse that looked like it belonged in an architecture. Magazine all clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and expensive minimalism. "Welcome," Dante said softly, "to my home." I stepped inside, my heart pounding. "I can't stay here. You don't have a choice. You can't just—" He spun to face me, and the raw intensity in his eyes stopped my words. "They shot at you, Ava. At the restaurant where I was supposed to keep you safe." His voice cracked slightly. "I won't make that mistake again." "So what? I'm your prisoner now?" "You're my responsibility. I didn't ask to be. And I didn't ask to—" He stopped himself, jaw working. "You're staying here. End of discussion." He turned and walked toward what I assumed was his bedroom, leaving me standing in the middle of his pristine living room. Trapped, protected, and terrifyingly drawn to the man who'd just turned my life into a war zone. I didn't sleep that night either. Dante had shown me to a guest room that was bigger than my entire apartment, king-sized bed, ensuite bathroom, with a tub that could fit 3 people, a walk-in closet filled with women's clothes in my exact size. That last detail had made my stomach turn. "Whose clothes are these?" I'd asked, standing in the doorway. Dante hadn't even looked up from his phone. "Yours. I had them delivered." "When?" "This afternoon." "You presumed I'd stay here." "I presumed," he'd said coldly, "that keeping you alive would require preparation." Then he'd walked away, leaving me alone in a gilded cage. Now it was 3 a.m., and I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. From this height, the world looked peaceful, orderly, like violence and gunfire and blood-stained knuckles didn't exist. "Can't sleep?" I spun around. Dante stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing black pants and a white t-shirt that clung to his chest. His hair was mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. Human, vulnerable, dangerous. "Did you expect me to?" I asked. "No." He crossed to the window, standing close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I don't sleep much either." "Guilty conscience?" His lips quirked. "Something like that." We stood in silence, watching the city breathe beneath us. This close, I could see the faint scar along his jawline, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "Tell me about her," I said softly. He went rigid. "Who?" "Sarah Castellano." The name hung between us like shattered glass. Dante's expression shuddered completely, every trace of humanity vanishing behind cold control. "You looked me up. Did you expect me not to? What did you read?" "That she died in a car accident 2 years ago, that she was your fiancé." I paused. "That people think you killed her." He laughed a bitter, broken sound. "Of course they do. Did you?" He turned to me, and the raw pain in his eyes made my breath catch. "I loved her. I would have burned this entire city down to keep her safe. Then, what happened? I failed." His voice was rough. "I failed, and she paid the price. Dante. She knew what I was, what I did, and she loved me anyway." He looked away, jaw clenched. "She thought she could change me, thought love was enough to pull me out of the darkness." "What changed?" "My uncle." The words came out like poison. "Vittorio Moretti. He thought Sarah made me weak, thought love made me vulnerable. So his hands fisted. He cut the brake lines in her car. Horror flooded through me. "Your own family?" "My own blood." Dante's smile was vicious. 3 days later, Vittorio had a heart attack. Very sudden, very fatal. The implication was clear. "You killed him," I whispered. I made sure he understood exactly what happens when someone takes something of mine. He looked at me, and the darkness in his eyes was absolute. And I've spent 2 years making sure no one ever forgets that lesson. I should have been terrified, should have been running for the door. Instead, I reached out and took his blood-stained hand in mine. Dante froze, staring at our joined hands like he couldn't comprehend what was happening. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "For your loss, for your pain. You're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you." I met his eyes. "But I'm also beginning to understand you." Something shifted in his expression, surprise, vulnerability, and hunger all tangled together. "You shouldn't," he said roughly. "Understanding me is dangerous. So is standing in your penthouse at 3 a.m. Ava." "Why me?" I demanded. "Out of everyone in this city, why did you show up at my door? Why do you care about a wrong number text?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because when I read that text, Those 3 words filled with so much rage and pain. I saw myself. My throat tightened. I saw someone who'd been betrayed. He continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Someone who'd loved the wrong person. Someone who was drowning in a darkness they didn't ask for. His hand tightened around mine. And for the first time in 2 years, I wanted to save someone instead of destroy them. The confession hung between us, raw and devastating. I'm not Sarah, I said carefully. I know. He lifted his free hand, cupping my face with heartbreaking gentleness. You're stronger. Braver. You look at me like I'm a monster and still don't run. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you are. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. Or maybe you see what everyone else is too afraid to look for. What's that? The man beneath the monster. My breath caught. We were so close now, his body heat wrapping around me, his eyes searching mine with desperate intensity. Dante, I whispered. This is insane. I know. I should leave. I know. I should hate you for dragging me into this. You should. His forehead touched mine. But you don't. He was right. God help me, he was right. I didn't hate him. I should. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to push him away, to demand he let me go, to return to my safe, boring, normal life. But standing here in the dark, with Dante Moretti, feeling his breath against my skin, seeing the vulnerability he hid from the rest of the world, I didn't want to leave. I'm going to kiss you now, Dante said, his voice rough. And if you want me to stop, you need to tell me. Because once I start, Ava, once I start, I won't be able to stop. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment. The choice. The point of no return. I looked into his dark eyes and saw everything, the danger, the violence, the absolute certainty that being with him would destroy the life I'd carefully built. Then don't stop, I breathed. And Dante Moretti kissed me like he was drowning and I was air. The kiss shattered something inside me. Dante's mouth was demanding and gentle all at once, controlled violence barely leashed. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back as he deepened the kiss, and I melted into him, all my fear and logic burning away under the heat of his touch. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Ava, he whispered against my lips. What are you doing to me? The same thing you're doing to me. He rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed, his control visibly fraying. I should send you away. Should put you on a plane to somewhere my enemies can't find you. But you won't. No. He opened his eyes, and the raw possession in them made my knees weak. I won't. He kissed me again, slower this time, savoring, and I forgot about everything except the way he tasted like whiskey and danger and something darker I couldn't name. When he finally stepped back, his control had returned, locked back into place like armor. Get some sleep, he said, his voice rough. Tomorrow we deal with the Rossi problem. What does that mean? His smile was cold. It means I'm going to remind them why you don't threaten what belongs to Dante Moretti. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the taste of him still on my lips. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back: the restaurant, the gunfire, Dante's confession, the kiss that had rewired my entire understanding of want. I found him in the kitchen, standing at the counter with a tablet in one hand and an espresso in the other. He'd showered and changed into another perfectly tailored suit, his hair still damp, his expression focused. He looked up when I entered, and something softened in his eyes. Morning, he said. Morning. I felt suddenly shy, hyper-aware of the fact that I was wearing one of the silk pajama sets he'd provided. You didn't sleep. I rarely do. He poured me a cup of coffee, black, no sugar, exactly how I took it, and slid it across the marble counter. We have a situation. The warmth from the kiss evaporated. What kind of situation? He turned the tablet toward me. The photograph on the screen made my stomach drop. It was me, leaving my apartment yesterday morning, coffee in hand, completely unaware that I was being watched, photographed. But it wasn't just surveillance. Someone had drawn a red X across my face. They sent this an hour ago, Dante said, his voice lethal, along with a message. What message? Return what you stole, or she disappears. My coffee cup clattered against the counter. What did you steal? Nothing. His jaw clenched. But someone wants me to think I did. I don't understand. The Rossi family lost a shipment 3 weeks ago. 50 million in uncut diamonds. They're claiming I took them. Did you? No. He met my eyes. But someone made sure it looks like I did. So this is a setup. This is a war. He closed the distance between us, his hands bracing on either side of me against the counter, caging me in. And you're caught in the middle. Then let me go. Send me. Away like you said. Get me out of this. I can't. Why not? Because they've already decided you matter to me. His voice dropped. Which means you're either my greatest weakness or my strongest weapon, and I'll be damned if I let anyone use you against me. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. Marco's downstairs. We have a meeting. A meeting with who? With the man who's trying to destroy me. The meeting took place in a warehouse on the industrial edge of the city, all rusted metal and broken windows and the kind of abandoned space where bad things happened. I sat in the SUV with Marco while Dante disappeared inside with 2 of his men. Through the tinted windows, I watched shadows move behind broken glass, heard raised voices, and felt my anxiety spike with every passing second. He'll be fine, Marco said, not looking at me. You don't know that. Miss Monroe, I've been with Mr. Moretti for 8 years. I've seen him walk into worse situations and come out without a scratch. But this time is different. Marco finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. Yes, this time is different. Because of me. 20 minutes later, Dante emerged. His suit was still pristine, his expression still controlled, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, the fury barely contained. He climbed into the driver's seat, dismissed Marco with a nod, and we were moving before I could ask questions. What happened? I demanded. Luca Rossi confirmed what I already knew. Someone's framing me for the diamond theft to start a war between our families. Who? Someone with access to both organizations. Someone smart enough to cover their tracks. He glanced at me. Someone who knows that the fastest way to take me down is to make me care about something I can't protect. My chest tightened. Dante. There's more. He handed me his phone. On the screen was another photograph. This one was older, grainy, taken from a distance. A young woman standing outside a courthouse, her face partially obscured but recognizable. My mother. What is this? I whispered. Your mother testified against the Moretti family 15 years ago. A money laundering case that sent 3 of my father's associates to prison. The world tilted. No, my mother was a paralegal. She worked for the DA's office. And she was the key witness in a case that nearly destroyed my family's operations. He pulled over, turning to face me fully. Tell me, Ava, did you really send that text to me by accident? Betrayal lanced through me. You think this was a setup from the beginning? I don't know what to think. His voice was cold. But someone knows about your mother. And someone made sure you ended up in my life right when the Rossi situation started escalating. I didn't know about any of this. Didn't you? He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine with brutal intensity. Or are you a much better actress than I gave you credit for? Tears burned behind my eyes. You kissed me last night. You told me I mattered. And now you're accusing me of being a spy? I'm accusing you, he said softly, dangerously, of being too perfect a coincidence. I slapped him. The sound cracked through the SUV like a gunshot. Dante didn't move, just stared at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. I am not a liar, I said, my voice shaking. I am not a spy. And I did not ask to be dragged into your world. Then prove it. How? He smiled, sharp and humorless, by helping me find out who did. The war room in Dante's penthouse looked like something out of a crime thriller. 3 massive monitors dominated one wall, displaying security feeds, financial records, and surveillance photographs. A conference table held laptops, files, and what I was pretty sure was an illegal weapons cache. Marco stood at attention. 2 other men I didn't recognize flanked the door, and Dante stood at the head of the table, radiating cold authority. Show her, he ordered. Marco pulled up a file on the center monitor. My mother's face stared back at me younger, terrified, standing outside a courthouse 15 years ago. Elena Monroe, Marco said, testified in the 2010 case against Moretti family associates. Her testimony resulted in 3 convictions. She was placed in witness protection afterward, relocated with her daughter. My daughter, me. I didn't know, I whispered. She never told me. She changed both your names, Marco continued. Your birth name was Ava Castellano. The room spun. Castellano, like Sarah Dante's dead fiancé. No, I breathed. That's not... Your mother was Sarah's aunt, Dante said, his voice flat. Which means Sarah was your cousin. I grabbed the table to keep from falling. You knew who I was this entire time. I suspected. He moved toward me, his expression unreadable. The moment I found your address, I ran a background check. Found the sealed records. Made the connection. And you said nothing? Because I wanted to know if you knew. His jaw clenched. I wanted to know if you were part of this. Part of what? Sarah died 2 years ago. I didn't even know she existed until I Googled you. But someone knew. Marco interjected. Someone knew about the connection and used it. Dante turned back to the monitors. The question is who? The diamonds. One of the other men said. The theft happened exactly 3 weeks ago. Right before Miss Monroe sent that text. Too convenient, Dante muttered. Someone orchestrated this. Someone with knowledge of both families. Could be a Rossi, Marco suggested. Or someone inside our organization. Dante's hands fisted. Someone who knew about Sarah, about Elena's testimony, about the connection between them. There's only one person who fits that profile, Marco said carefully. Dante's expression turned to stone. Get me Tommaso. Tommaso Moretti was Dante's cousin. Younger charmer with the kind of easy smile that made you trust him instantly. He walked into the penthouse an hour later, hands in his pockets, completely at ease. Cousin, he greeted. You summoned? Sit down. Dante's voice was lethal. Tommaso's smile faltered. He glanced at me, then at Marco, then back to Dante. What's going on? 50 million in diamonds, stolen from the Rossi family, framed to look like I did it. Dante leaned forward. And someone who knew about Elena Monroe's connection to Sarah. Tommaso went pale. You think I think someone very close to me orchestrated this entire situation to start a war. Someone who benefits from chaos in the organization. Dante's eyes narrowed. Someone who's been pushing for more territory, more power. I would never betray you. Wouldn't you? Dante pulled up a file on his tablet. These are wire transfers from your personal account. 50 deposits of 1 million each, spread over the last 3 months. All from offshore accounts tied to the Rossi organization. Tommaso stood abruptly. That's not someone setting me up. Convenient. Dante's voice was ice. That's the same thing I've been saying. Dante, please, I'm family. So was Vittorio. Dante rose, circling the table like a predator. And we both know what happened to him. The threat hung in the air. Tommaso's eyes darted to the door. To Marco. To the other men whose hands had moved toward concealed weapons. I didn't do this, he said desperately. I swear on my life I didn't do this. Then who did? I don't know. Dante moved faster than I could track. One moment he was across the table. The next, he had Tommaso slammed against the wall, forearm across his throat. Dante! I shouted. Stop. He didn't even look at me. Tell me the truth, Tommaso. Tell me who you're working with, and I'll make it quick. I can't, Tommaso choked. If I tell you they'll kill my sister, Dante released him instantly. Your sister? Tommaso collapsed, gasping. They have Isabella. Took her 3 weeks ago. Said if I didn't help frame you, they'd... His voice broke. They'd do to her what Vittorio did to Sara. The room went silent. Dante's hands were shaking, barely visible. But I saw it. Where is she? He asked, his voice rough. I don't know. They move her every few days. But... Tommaso pulled out his phone with trembling hands. They send proof of life. Photos. Videos. He handed the phone to Dante. I couldn't see the screen, but I saw Dante's face and the raw fury that transformed his features. Marco, he said quietly. Call in every favor we have. Find her. Yes, sir. Dante turned to Tommaso. You should have come to me. I couldn't risk it. They said they had someone inside. Someone close to you. Tommaso's eyes met mine. Someone who'd report back the moment I asked for help. Who? I don't know. But, he swallowed hard. They knew about Ava before you did. Knew she was coming into your life. Knew exactly how to use her. Dante's jaw clenched. Then this isn't about the diamonds. No. Tommaso's voice was hollow. This is about destroying you from the inside out. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant, calculating. Then he looked at me. Ava, he said carefully, I need you to tell me everything you remember about the day you sent that text. Every detail. Who you talked to, where you went, what you did, why. Because, he said, his voice dropping, I think someone's been watching you a lot longer than 3 weeks. A chill ran down my spine. And I think, Dante continued, they've been waiting for the perfect moment to use you against me. The monitors flickered. Then every screen went black, and a message appeared in blood-red letters. Tick-tock, Moretti. You have 24 hours to return what you stole, or she dies screaming. Below it a photograph. Not Isabella. Me. Bound. Gagged. Terrified. But I was standing right here, in this room. Not tied up. Not, that's not me. I whispered. Dante's face had gone sheet white. No. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. Then he showed me the image. It was my apartment. Empty. The door hanging open. And on my kitchen counter, next to Dante's white roses, a puddle of blood. That's impossible. My voice didn't sound like my own. I'm right here. That photo can't be. It's photoshopped, Marco said quickly, already working on his laptop. A threat. Not real. But Dante wasn't listening. He was staring at his phone, his expression unreadable. The blood is real, he said quietly. What? He showed me another message. A video this time. I watched in horror as a figure in a black mask walked through my apartment. My real apartment. The one I'd left yesterday. They moved through the kitchen, past the roses Dante had given me, and stopped at the counter. Then they placed something down. A severed finger. I stumbled backward, bile rising in my throat. Oh my God, it's not yours, Dante said, his voice sharp. Marco, run the print. Marco was already on it. On it, sir. Dante grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. Ava, focus. You're safe. You're here with me. That's a threat, not reality. Whose finger is that? I choked out. I don't know yet. His hands tightened. But I will find out, and I will. Sir. Marco's voice cut through. The print matches Isabella Moretti. Tommaso made a sound like a dying animal. Dante released me and spun toward Marco. You're certain? Positive. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Dante's face transformed into something inhuman, pure, cold rage that made me understand exactly why people feared him. Tommaso, he said, his voice deadly calm. Where did they tell you to deliver the diamonds? I don't have them. I told you where. The old warehouse, Pier 17. Tomorrow at midnight. Tommaso was shaking. But I don't have them, Dante. I swear I don't have them. Then we have a problem. Dante pulled out his phone. Because whoever has Isabella expects 50 million in diamonds in less than 24 hours. And neither of us have them. So we find them, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. We find the diamonds, I repeated, my voice stronger. We figure out who really stole them, and we get Isabella back. This isn't a movie, Ava, Dante said coldly. This is real. People die. You could die. And Isabella will die if we do nothing. I moved toward him. You said I was caught in the middle of this. Fine. Then let me help. Absolutely not. You don't have a choice. I met his eyes. Someone used me to get to you. Someone knew about my mother, about Sarah, about everything, which means I'm already a target. So either I sit here and wait to be leverage, or I help you end this. Dante stared at me for a long moment. Then to my surprise, he smiled. Not his cold, dangerous smile. A real one. You're insane, he said. I learned from the best. Sir, Marco interjected. If we're doing this, we need to move fast. The Rossi family will be watching, and whoever set this up will be waiting for us to make a mistake. Dante's expression hardened. Then we don't make mistakes. He turned to Tommaso. You're going to that meet tomorrow. But you're not going alone. What's the plan? Tommaso asked. The plan is we find those diamonds in the next 23 hours. Or... Dante's jaw clenched. Or we make them think we have. The next 20 hours were a blur. Dante's organization moved with military precision. Marco coordinated surveillance. Men I didn't know fanned out across the city, following leads, squeezing informants, tracking money, and Dante became someone else entirely. The man who'd kissed me in the dark, who'd confessed his pain over Sarah, who'd looked at me like I mattered. That man disappeared. In his place was the head of the Moretti family. Cold, calculating, absolutely ruthless. I watched him interrogate 3 different people, watched him make phone calls in Italian that made grown men pale, watched him orchestrate a plan that involved fake diamonds, double crosses, and a level of strategic violence that should have terrified me. It didn't, because I was beginning to understand him. At hour 15, we got a break. One of Dante's contacts, a jeweler on the east side, had been approached about fencing uncut diamonds. Big stones. 50 million worth. When? Dante demanded over speakerphone. 2 days ago. I turned them down, obviously. Told them I don't touch that kind of heat. Who approached you? Who approached you? Didn't give a name. But... The jeweler hesitated. She had a Rossi family tattoo. Right wrist. Small. Easy to miss if you weren't looking. Dante's eyes met mine across the table. Description, he said, his voice tight. Late 20s, dark hair, Italian, beautiful. And another pause. She mentioned you by name, Moretti. Said you'd sent her. I didn't. I know. That's why I called Marco. Dante ended the call and looked at Tommaso. Do the Rossis have any female soldiers? Only one, Tommaso said slowly. Valentina Rossi, Luca's younger sister. And where is Valentina now? She's supposed to be in Milan. Has been for 6 months. Check again. Marco's fingers flew across his keyboard. Then he went still. She flew back to the city 4 weeks ago. Private jet. No record of her leaving. 4 weeks. Right before the diamonds disappeared. Right before someone started setting Dante up. Right before I sent that text. It's her, I said. She's the one who has Isabella. But why? Tommaso demanded. What does she gain from starting a war between our families? Dante was quiet, his eyes distant. Then, power. She destabilizes both organizations, takes out the leadership on both sides, and steps into the vacuum. She's one woman, Marco said doubtfully. She's one woman with 50 million in diamonds, a captive, and apparently no moral compass. Dante stood. And she made one crucial mistake. What's that? I asked. He looked at me, and something fierce blazed in his eyes. She threatened you. At hour 23, we had a plan. It was insane, borderline suicidal, and it required me to do something I'd never imagined I'd be capable of. Walk into a warehouse full of criminals and lie through my teeth. You don't have to do this, Dante said for the 10th time. We were in the SUV, parked 3 blocks from Pier 17. Marco was in the front seat. Tommaso was in another vehicle with backup, and I was wearing a wire. Yes, I do, I said. Ava. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. I'm not Sarah. I'm not going to be a victim. And I'm sure as hell not going to let another woman die because of this. Something cracked in his expression. If anything happens to you, it won't. If it does, I kissed him. Hard, desperate, possibly our last. When I pulled back, his control was in shreds, his eyes dark with emotion. Come back to me, he whispered. Always. Then I got out of the car and walked toward the warehouse where Valentina Rossi was waiting. The warehouse smelled like rust and rotting fish. I walked through the entrance, my heels echoing on concrete, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. The wire taped to my ribs felt like ice against my skin. Well, a woman's voice echoed from the shadows. The little girlfriend finally shows her face. Valentina Rossi stepped into the dim light. She was beautiful, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes, the kind of elegant danger that made men stupid. She wore black from head to toe, and a gun rested casually in her hand. Behind her, tied to a chair, was Isabella. She was alive, bruised, terrified, but alive. I'm here, I said, keeping my voice steady. Let her go. Let her go? Valentina laughed. You think you're in a position to make demands? I have what you want. The diamonds? Her smile sharpened. Where are they? Somewhere safe. Somewhere. Dante is waiting to hear that Isabella is released unharmed. And if I just kill you both, then you never get the diamonds. And Dante burns this entire city down looking for revenge. Valentina studied me, her head tilted. You're braver than I expected. Sarah was weak, pathetic. But you... She moved closer. You have fire. Is that why you killed her? I demanded. Because she was weak? I didn't kill Sara. Valentina's smile turned cold. That was all Vittorio. Such a waste. She could have been useful. Useful how? As leverage. As a weapon against Dante. She circled me slowly. You see, Ava, men like Dante Moretti only have one weakness. They love. And love makes them careless. Is that what this is about? Making him careless? This is about taking everything he's built and burning it to ash. Her eyes glittered. He destroyed my family. Killed my father. Took our territory. So I'm going to destroy him from the inside out. Your brother is a fool. Luca thinks he can. Negotiate with Dante. Make peace. She spat the word like poison. But I know better. The only way to beat Dante Moretti is to make him suffer. So you stole the diamonds, framed him, started a war, and used you to break him completely. She stopped in front of me. The gun pressed against my stomach. Did he tell you he loved you yet? Did he make promises? Swear he'd keep you safe? I didn't answer. Of course he did. Her laugh was bitter. That's what they all do, right before they fail. Dante won't fail. He already has. Valentina's finger tightened on the trigger. Because you're about to die, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. You're wrong. The voice came from behind her. Dante stepped out of the shadows, gun raised, his expression carved from ice. You're wrong, he repeated, because I've been here the entire time. Valentina spun, her weapon trained on him. Impossible. My men are unconscious, or dead. I haven't checked. Dante moved closer, deadly calm. It's over, Valentina. Lower the weapon. You'll have to shoot me first. I will. His voice was absolute. The only question is whether you walk away from this alive or in a body bag. Then I guess we both die. Her gun swung back toward me. Because if I can't destroy you, I'll destroy what you love. The gunshot was deafening. Valentina's eyes went wide. She looked down at the blood blooming across her chest, then back up at Dante. You... She choked. I told you. Dante's voice was cold. No one threatens what's mine. She collapsed. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Marco appeared with two other men, already moving to secure Isabella. Tommaso rushed past them, falling to his knees beside his sister, cutting her free. And Dante crossed to me in 3 long strides. Are you hurt? His hands were on my face, my shoulders, checking for injuries. I'm fine. He kissed me, desperate, consuming, like he was trying to convince himself I was real. Don't ever do that. Again. He breathed against my lips. Don't ever put yourself in danger like that again. We saved her. You almost died. But I didn't. I pulled back, meeting his eyes. We won, Dante. He stared at me for a long moment, his expression raw. Then he pulled me against his chest and held me like he'd never let go. The aftermath was chaos. Dante's men found the diamonds in Valentina's warehouse, all 50 million worth, exactly where she'd stashed them after the theft. The Rossi family, led by Luca, negotiated a truce. Valentina had acted alone, and her death ended the vendetta. Isabella recovered, slowly, painfully, but she recovered. And Tommaso swore loyalty to Dante with a fervor that bordered on worship. But for me, the real change was quieter. I went back to my apartment now with a security system that could probably stop a military invasion, and tried to return to normal life. Except nothing was normal anymore. I couldn't walk down the street without seeing Dante's men, shadowing me. Couldn't go to work without Marco coincidentally having coffee at the shop across the street. And I couldn't stop thinking about the man who'd risked everything to save me. It took 3 days before Dante showed up at my door. He stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Hi, he said. Hi. I wanted to... He stopped, started again. I need to talk to you. I stepped aside, letting him in. He moved to the window, staring out at the city, his shoulders tense. What we did, he said finally. What happened between us. I need you to understand something. My heart clenched. You're ending this. No. He turned, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. I'm asking if you want to. What? You didn't ask for my world, Ava. You didn't ask for violence and danger and late-night threats. You deserve better than what I can offer you. And what can you offer me? He moved toward me slowly, like he was afraid I'd bolt. Honesty, he said. Protection. A life that will never be normal or safe or easy. He stopped in front of me, his voice dropping. And a man who's completely irrevocably in love with you. The words hung in the air, raw and true. Dante. I love you, he repeated, his hands cupping my face. I've loved you since you opened that door and looked at me like I was both your salvation and your destruction. And I will spend every day proving that you didn't make a mistake by letting me in. Tears blurred my vision. This is insane. I know. Your world is dangerous. I know. I could die. Not while I'm breathing. His forehead touched mine. Never while I'm breathing. I kissed him. And in that kiss was my answer. 3 months later, I stood in Dante's penthouse and realized my entire life had changed. The woman who'd cried over her ex-fiancé's betrayal felt like a stranger. The woman who'd lived in a cramped apartment and written grant proposals and believed in safe, predictable love, she was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who'd walked into a warehouse full of criminals and lied to a killer's face. Someone who'd chosen darkness and danger because the man at the center of it loved her with a ferocity that made her soul burn. You're thinking too loud. I turned. Dante stood in the doorway, watching me with those dark, knowing eyes. He'd shed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and somehow looked even more devastating in casual disarray. I was thinking about how different my life is now, I admitted. Regrets? His voice was carefully neutral, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. No. I crossed to him, sliding my arms around his waist. Not even one. Something in him relaxed. He pulled me closer, his lips brushing my temple. I have something for you, he murmured. If it's another security upgrade. It's not. He pulled a small box from his pocket. My breath caught. Dante. It's not a ring. He opened it, revealing a breatha. Key. It's a choice. I stared at the key, my heart racing. I know you love your independence, he said quietly. I know moving in here would mean giving up your apartment, your space, your ability to pretend my world isn't yours. But I'm asking anyway. He lifted my chin, his eyes fierce. I'm asking you to choose this. Choose me. Choose a life that will be complicated and dangerous and absolutely terrifying. And beautiful, I whispered. And passionate. And real. His smile was devastating. Is that a yes? That's a yes. He kissed me slow and deep and full of promise. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you, Ava Monroe. Or should I say? He paused. Ava Castellano. I froze. What? Your mother called me. He smiled at my shock. Apparently, she's been keeping tabs on you. On us. And she wanted me to know that she approves. My mother approves of me dating a mafia boss. She approves of you being happy. His expression softened. She said Sarah would have liked you. Would have been glad I found someone strong enough to handle this life. Tears pricked my eyes. I wish I could have known her. Me too. He brushed a tear from my cheek. But I think in some way she brought us together. A wrong number and a dead cousin. Very romantic. He laughed a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. When you put it that way, it's perfect. I finished. Completely insane and absolutely perfect. Later that night, we stood on the balcony, watching the city lights sparkle below. Tommaso's throwing a party next week, Dante said, his arms wrapped around me from behind. Family celebration. You'll be officially introduced. As what? As mine. His lips brushed my ear. As the woman who saved my cousin, exposed a traitor, and stole my heart. That's a lot of titles. You've earned them. I leaned back against his chest, feeling safe in a way I'd never imagined possible. Dante? Do you ever think about leaving? Just walking away from all of this? He was quiet for a long moment. Every day, he finally admitted. Especially now that I have something to lose again. But you won't. No. His arms tightened. This world, this family, it's who I am. I can't change that. I'm not asking you to change. I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. I'm asking if you're happy. His expression softened. I'm happy right now. With you. That's enough. Is it? It has to be. He cupped my face. Because this is all I can offer you, Ava. A life in the shadows. A love built on blood and loyalty. And the absolute certainty that I will die before I let anyone hurt you. That's terrifying. I know. His smile was sad. But it's the truth. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into that kiss. Love, acceptance, defiance. Then I guess, I whispered against his lips, we'll be terrified together. 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom. Not as a witness, not as a victim. As Dante's attorney read out charges against 3 dirty cops who'd been taking bribes from the Rossi family evidence Dante had carefully collected and anonymously delivered to the DA. People like to think I'm a monster, Dante had said when he'd shown me the files. Maybe I am. But I draw the line at dirty cops. It was such a strange contradiction. The man who'd killed without hesitation, who'd tortured information from his enemies and burned warehouses full of stolen goods, was the same man who anonymously funded women's shelters and took down corrupt officials. Dante Moretti was a monster and a savior, and I loved every complicated, contradictory piece of him. After the hearing, we drove to the cemetery. Dante hadn't visited Sarah's grave in 2 years, but today, with my hand in his, he finally could. We stood in silence, the wind rustling through the trees. I'm sorry, Dante said quietly. Sorry I couldn't save you. Sorry I failed. I squeezed his hand. But I want you to know, his voice cracked slightly. I want you to know that I found her. Found someone strong and brave and absolutely perfect. And I think, he paused, I think you'd like her. A tear rolled down my cheek. Dante pulled me close, his lips pressing against my hair. Thank you, he whispered, for giving me permission to love again. We left white roses on Sarah's grave, a promise, a goodbye, and a blessing all at once. 1 year after that wrong number text, I stood in Dante's penthouse, wearing a black dress that cost more than my old car. The party was in full swing downstairs. Moretti family, business associates, politicians who pretended they didn't know exactly who Dante was. But up here, it was just us. Happy anniversary, Dante said, handing me a glass of champagne. We're celebrating a text message? We're celebrating the night my life changed. He clinked his glass against mine. The night I got a message that said I hate you and decided to find out why. Best. Wrong number ever. Agreed. We drank, laughed, and I realized something profound. I'd spent my whole life playing it safe, following rules, believing that love was supposed to be easy and predictable and comfortable. But loving Dante Moretti was none of those things. It was dangerous and complicated and absolutely terrifying. It was also the most real, honest, passionate thing I'd ever experienced. What are you thinking? Dante asked, reading my expression, that I should have sent that text on purpose. He smiled, that devastating, dangerous smile that still made my knees weak. Then I guess fate knew what it was doing. Or Sarah did. Or Sarah did, he agreed softly. The music drifted up from the party below. Dante set down his glass and extended his hand. Dance with me. There's no music up here. Then we'll make our own. I took his hand, and he pulled me close, and we swayed in the silence, 2 people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and somehow made it work. I love you, I whispered. I love you more, he replied. That's impossible. Then I guess. He kissed me, slow and sweet. We'll have to spend forever proving who loves who more. Forever is a long time. Good. His eyes held mine, dark and intense and absolutely certain. Because I'm never letting you go. And as we stood there, wrapped in each other, the city lights sparkling below, I knew he meant it. Dante Moretti had claimed me with a bouquet of roses and a wrong number, and I had claimed him right back. This was our love story. Dark, dangerous, defiant, and absolutely, perfectly ours.